Ibailahu. So they asked, Masa shechotzu beinu leveinu abrai. There was a chalitza that we were talking about. Remember the man and the woman were imprisoned, and they did chalitza outside of the prison. Or they're asking if it took if the chalitza took place outside. And it was Rabbi Akiva who was in prison when they asked him the question, right? So in other words, when they said this happened in prison, was it that the question was asked in prison or the incident took place in prison? Or maybe or maybe the incident took place in prison. Or maybe the Marav, or it says the incident occurred in prison. And also it came to Rabbi Akiva when he was imprisoned. Okay. Tana Rabbi son. Chalitza mutes kshera. If you have a mistaken chalitza, it's like done under false pretenses, that it still works. What does that mean? Ezu chalitza mutas. What is a mistaken chalitza? Amar Shlakish says, Kol she'omrim lo chalotzu v'kachata konsa. If they told him, they want this guy to do chalitza for whatever reason, and they said, you know what? Here's what you do: take off her shoe, and that will affect the yibum. That will affect the marriage. Okay, so they're faking him out. And then he does the chalitza, and they said, guess what? You just do chalitza. So does that? So the rabbi said that's okay. It doesn't require intent. Even the opposite intent is okay. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Ani shana," but I saw in another brisa, "Ben shenis kaven hu, v'lo nis kavna he, ben shenis kavna he, v'lo nis kaven hu." Doesn't matter either way. If it was her intention that was subverted or his, chalitza psula. Either way, even if only one of them had the wrong idea, then it is not a good chalitza. Achis kavnu shem kacha. They have to both understand what they're doing. B'yad amras chalitza sakshera. Now you're saying that it's that it works. Ella, so we can explain the brisa differently. What is a mistaken chalitza? Not the wrong intent, but when they say, you know what, go ahead and do the chalitza, we'll pay you $200. Okay, and then they renege, right? So it was done. That's the false pretenses. So he knew what he was doing, but he was cheated, or they tricked him into doing it, basically. And so he's doing it, with intention to do chalitza, even though he's doing it under the influence of this bribe. That still works. That's what our Brisa is talking about. We're supporting Brisa. Chalitza mutas kashera. A mistaken chalitza is valid. Ezo chalitza mutas, and this Brisa spells it out. What does that mean? Anywhere where they say do the chalitza, will pay you $200. And they don't even pay him. And there was a case of a woman, Yavam who became a Yevama. She was up for Yibum for somebody who was an inappropriate match for her. What that means is left to our imagination. Maybe it was a May December thing. Maybe he was not maybe he was abusive, or they suspected he would be abusive, or whatever it was. They decided this isn't such a good idea. And they said, but he wanted to do Yibum. So they said to him, we'll pay you $200, and he did it, and they didn't pay. Rabbi Chia said, yeah, it's a valid chalitza. Interesting that the Gemara doesn't yet, maybe it will come, I don't remember, but maybe why you would expect them to explore the whole issue of intent, right? And doing it under false pretenses. We'll see. How would also coming to Rabbi Chia Barama? Another case where someone came to Rabbi Chia. Amrullah, he said, "Biti amodi." He said to the woman, you should do the Yibum. Amrullah. So the mother said to Rabbi Chia, Yeshivasa, he said, stand up and do it. He used the word stand up. So she said, you know what? She's sitting down. Yeshivasa zuhi amidasa. Her sitting, in other words, she's not going to do it. That's the resolution of this case is she's just not doing it. Amrullah, he said, Yadat le, do you know anything about this guy? Amrullah, yeah, I know him. Mamonahu de Chazala. He's marrying her for her money. And he's basically, he wants to do yibum, spend down all her money, and then he's going to divorce her, right? So it's abusive. Amarlas, or he has said, lo nichalach. Lo nichalach. He asked the woman, do you not want to marry him? Amarle lo. She said, no, I don't want to marry him. Amarle. So he said to the husband, to the Yavam, chalotzla uvukachat hakonsa. You know what? I'll tell you how we're going to do the yibum. Take off her shoe, right? So that's the first trick, the first interpretation of the brisa. Hashta minach ipasala. Now that you've done the chalitza, you can't even marry her anymore. Chalotzla chalitza malisa. Now do a proper chalitza kihecha tishrei lalma, so that she will be permitted to marry somebody else. So what happened here is the chalitza that he did was not valid, not a valid chalitza, as we said before, because he did it with the opposite intention. However, once he did this kind of chalitza, we're not going to let him do yibum anymore, right? For either because we're concerned that it's not a really good chalitza, or people will think that you can get married after chalitza or whatever. So he said, you know what? Now the only thing left to do is to do a real chalitza. Of course, there's a risk here that he would be angry and not do it. So, what to do then? I don't know. Bas Chamua de Rav Papa, the daughter of Rav Papa's father-in-law, so that would be his sister-in-law, the daughter of his father-in-law, so his wife's, his sister-in-law. Same thing happened to her. She became she fell to a Yavam who was not an appropriate match. So he came to Abai. Amalei, use the same strategy. Do the chalisa, take off her shoe. That's how you're going to marry her. Amalei, Rav Papa says, don't you agree with what Yochanan says that that's not considered a good chalitza? So Abai says, what am I going to tell him? Like, how am I going to get him to release her? Like, that's the only plan I have. But, Rav Papa says, but it's not going to work. So he advised him, to bribe him, tell him you're going to give him $200. After the chalitza took place, Amarle Zil Havle, he said, go give him the money, right? Amarle, so Papa said, Mishata Anibacha Avdale. She was trying to she didn't want to actually pay him the money, right? She was like using this as a ruse. Milotanya, and don't we have a brisa? A person who is escaping from prison, and he's got to cross the river. Vamarle told Dina Rahabirani, and he says to the ferryman, I'll pay you, pay you the fare, take me across the river, but don't leave me here. I'm being chased, I'm going to be taken back to prison. Even if he offers him a lot of money, he can only charge the regular fare, no price gouging. Alma, so why? Because it's clear that under the circumstances the offer of the extra money was not sincere. The guy is desperate, right? Same should apply here to the Yevamot, right? She's desperate to get released, so that's why she's going to offer him $200. But we don't have to hold her to that. Same as we don't have to hold the escaping prisoner to the exorbitant fare. Same thing that we'd say here. Amalei, so why did you make him pay up? Why did you make her pay up? Amalei. So he answered, Avuch Hecha, where's your father? Amalei b'masa. He said, he's in the city. He's downtown. Ima Hecha, where's your mother? Amalei b'masa. She's also in the city. Yaivo Eine Ushachiban. So Abaye glared at Rav Papa's parents, and they died. This is one of these weird stories that I have no idea what's going on here. Like, what was punishing Rav Papa, or so some of the commentaries try to soften this blow as like, he caused God's attention to be focused on Rav Papa's parents, and they were killed. They died for some other reason. It seems more like Abai is being rather vindictive and angry, and like, why? I have no idea what to say. I don't know. Tanarama, Rabbi's time. Chalitza mutas kshera. A mistaken chalitza is okay. Get muta possible, but a coerced or a mistaken get, that's not valid. Chalitza mu'uses psula. If you force a chalitza, you threaten the guy, do chalitza or else, that's invalid. Get mu'usa kasher, but a get that is done by force is okay, and we'll see what the Gemara will discuss the circumstances. Hey Chidami, what are we talking about? So if you're coercing the guy until he says yes, I'm willing to do it, right? So then afilu chalitza namik. We've seen that when we get to Gittin, we'll see that one of the tools available to the rabbis is to threaten they want to make somebody give a divorce. They threaten him until he says, yes, I want to give the divorce, because that's one of the conditions, right? You have to do it of your own free will. So still the rabbis are able to coerce you into saying, yes, this is what I want to do. But that should also work for chalitza, if that's what we're talking about. But if we're just talking about threatening him and not making him say that I want to do it, then the get should also be no good, because the get also has to be done by free will. So this is how we're going to explain it. Chalitza mutes li'olam kasher. A mistaken chalitza is always good, right? There's no requirement for it to be with full knowledge, etc. We get mute li'olam pasul, and a mistaken get is always invalid. Chalitza mu'uses, we get musa. What about a forced one done under threat? Zimni kasher, zimni pasul. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. Hadiyam rotzani, hadiyam lo rotzani. It works when you force the guy to say, yes, this is what I want to do. But if you don't do that, if you just force him, twist his arm until he does it, then that's no good. And that applies to both chalitza and get. So we're rewriting the brisa basically to accommodate this rule. The Tanya, and what's the proof? Here's the brisa. Yakrivosa. When a person is required to bring a sacrifice, so the Torah says he shall bring the sacrifice. Malamed shekofin. So the brisa takes it to mean that you can force him to bring the sacrifice. Yachal bal karcho. Does that mean that you can force him, literally, twist his arm till he does it? Talmud lomer l'tzala. No, you can't, because the Torah says it has to be of your own will, right? Okay, so how do you reconcile that? You force him to say until he says, yes, this is what I want to do. And the same thing with divorces. The stratagem is to force him to say he wants to do it. Amar Rava, Amar Rav Schora, Amar Rav Huda. Rava said in the name of Rav Schora, Cholsin afal pi she'ein makirin. You can do. Let's say you two strangers come to a court. They're strange. They're like from out of town. The court doesn't know them, and they say we have a requirement to perform chalitza, and the court doesn't know anything about them. That's okay. They can still perform the chalitza, right? Because there's no downside. What if they don't really need to do chalitza? So what? Nothing happened. Same thing with a miyun, a minor girl who is married off by her mother and brother in the absence of a father. Then she has the opportunity when she reaches the age of majority to reject the marriage. That's called miyun, and that can be done in the court even if they don't know the circumstances. Therefore, don't write a document of chalitza unless you know who they are. And don't document the miyun unless you know them. Because we're worried about the possibility of a court making a mistake. Because the standard text of these documents is, and we know, that this is this person, this is that person, so the court can't issue that document, but they can still perform the chalitza. But Rabbi said of his own, no, don't even do the chalitza unless you know who they are. Don't do the miyun unless you know who they are. Therefore, the witnesses can write a document of chalitza even though they don't recognize the people. Because we get miyun off of Mishnah, same with the miyun, because the court knows them, right? So if the Beis Din telling, and you don't have to worry that the Beis Din is making a mistake because because they know who they are. Okay, we turn the page to the next Mishnah. Mitzvahs chalitza. Here's how you do the chalitza. You think this would be at the beginning, but it's not. Bahu v'yavim tol Beis Din. The man and the woman come to the court. V'hein masin lo etzav yanaslo. And they give him they advise him what to do. They tell him, like, do the chalitza shenamar, as it says in the Torah. The elders should call the man and speak to him. So in other words, they're advising him about should you do the chalitza, should you do the yibum, whatever. Shenamar, the Omeres, and then she says, this is the Torah says what prescribes her formula. She says to the court, this Yavam, he doesn't want to live up to his responsibility to keep his brother's name alive. Lo Avayami, he doesn't want to marry. And then he says, Lo chafasi l'kachta. Again, this is how it's prescribed in the Torah. He says, I don't want to take her. And this has to be done in Hebrew. Then the next pasuk, the next verse in the Torah says, the Yevamot comes close to him before the eyes of the elders. She takes the shoe off of his foot. Then she spits before him. The Mishnah comments they have to see the spit. And then the Torah continues, and then she declares, so shall be done to the man who does not build up the house of his brother. They would like dictate, like the president's oath. They read it out to him and he repeats so that they get the words right. There was a case where Rav Hyrcanus dictated this formula under the elm tree in Kfar Eitam. The Gomar's called Parsha, and he finishes the whole. He finished the verse, which was Yisrael. This is not part of the quote or part of the prescribed language. This is the Torah commenting, and that place shall be called the Chalitza house. Okay, but he, made a mistake. He was like reading from the text, and he's like, "Here's what you say, blah 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 blah," and this place will be called the Chalitza house. So Huchsukuli is going to call a parsha, and then that became the custom that they would read the whole pasuk. V'nikra shmo b'yisrael beis chalutza now. So that is the end of the formula. The place is called the house of taking off the shoe, the chalitza house. Mitzvah b'dayanim. Below mitzvah b'talmidim. The place is to be called that, like the judges should say, okay, this is the chalitza place, and not the students. In other words, it's part of the ceremony, and it doesn't have to be repeated by everybody, right? Rabbi Yehuda says, no, everybody should call that one. The Torah says that place shall be called. Everybody who's there should say, this is the chalitza house. Rabbi Yehuda says, mitzvahs chalitza v'koreh. Mitzvahs chalitza korah v'koreh. She reads and he reads. V'chaletzas v'rakaka. She takes off the shoe and spits. V'korah, and then she recites her thing. My kamashmal, I must nisini. So this is exactly what the Mishnah says. It's like exactly like it's prescribed in the Torah. What's he telling us? Mashmal on mitzvah hachivi apichle lan leislanba. He said, yeah, this is the mitzvah. This is the way it should be done. But you know what? If they mix up the order or whatever, as long as all the parts of the ceremony are carried out, then it's fine. We have another brisa like that. Bein shehiknim chalitza l'rikika, bein shehiknim rikika l'chalitza. As we saw earlier, whether the spitting came first or the chalitza came first, it still works. Mashasa asay. Whatever it's done, whatever is done has been done. Even if it's out of the order, it's still all the parts were done and it's effective. Amar Abaye says, "Haiman the makre get chalitza." The person who's reading, who's leading the reading, right? Who reads that to them for them to repeat. Lo likre ledida, lo chude avayabmi lechude. He should like repeat entire phrases. He shouldn't say he he does not want to marry me. It's not like that. You have to do the whole phrase. He does not want to marry me. He does not want to marry me. Um, why? The mashma ava yabi, because to marry me, that phrase doesn't sound right in the context, right? It's like it sounds like if you only heard that part, you'd think, oh, they're getting married, right? So make sure you keep the not in the phrase. Ela lo ava yabi. You have to keep the not in the phrase. Below likre ledidei, and similarly, when the woman says, I don't want to, or no, to the man, that was to the woman, and to the man, like, I don't want to take her. Again, do the whole phrase. Don't just say want to take her separately from don't. Okay. Say it all in one phrase. Rava says, Afsuke milsahi. It's okay if you break it up that way. It's just, it's a single statement. It's not like it's clear from the grammar that, it's not a whole sentence. Like I want to marry him instead of I don't want to marry him. No, just taking a phrase is clearly just a phrase, part of a larger sentence in which the don't is stated. So Rava says, don't worry about this. Ravashi Ashkechel Rav Kana. Ravashi met Rav Kana. Depkamitzayer umakri lo avayavni. He was like making sure that the guy would do it in one breath. He's like, don't. He was being a little over zealous there. Amarle, so Ravashi asked him, well, Umar Rava, don't you agree with what Rava says? That like it's just a phrase, like don't worry about it so much. Amarle, he answered, what Rava below avayavni? No, Rava agrees with that in general, but in the phrase, he doesn't want to marry me. Like in the Hebrew grammar, the words avayavmi is a full sentence. So you definitely have to have the lo. It doesn't work so well in English. But in Hebrew, you have to be careful. Like if you split up a sentence into phrases that could be themselves a full sentence, then make sure that all your phrases are express the the correct intent. Rabbi says, Haiman the of Gita the Chalitza. If you're writing the Chalitza document, this is the text. We dictated to her from the beginning of the formula till the end of the formula, and v'akrinu l'didei min lo ad l'kachta. We read out for him his whole entire formula. V'akrinu l'dida min kacha v'yachalutz anal, and we read it again to her the third part of the formula, and she read it back. So in this case, it's like they're using ellipsis, right? They're not saying we read to him from first word to last word of the phrase, right? And they didn't put in the whole phrase, right? So like, what about that, right? Why can you use an ellipsis? But in the document is because because you can't take apart the document to make it look like the wrong phrase was used. So since it's a written document, you have to read the whole thing. You realize the reader knows what's going on. Marzutra would like score the lines on the parchment and write the whole Chalitza chapter there. So scoring of the parchment was important, apparently, in validating that the document is complete. Because once you've scored it, if you tear off part of it, you can see that it's only a partial document. Maskifla Mar Bar, but Mar asked the question. This is you're not supposed to write. You're not supposed to write only part of a pasuk, part of a verse from the Torah. So so how come, like you're writing this with the ellipsis, like you're only writing the beginning and end of the verse? Isn't that violate the rule of don't write half verses? But the halacha accords with Mar Zutra that it's okay to do so in this case. And why is that? Because this isn't for the purpose of teaching, right? This isn't, you don't want to have partly written verses because you don't want the Torah to be misconstrued or misunderstood. But this is a legal document. This isn't an educational document. So this is not what people are going to use to maintain the tradition of what's written in the Torah. Amrabai, Rakaka Uklatatu Haruach. What if the woman spits, and then the spit doesn't land on the ground? The wind, comes and blows it away from midair. Loss of a local. That doesn't count. That doesn't work. My time, why? The Yarko Befana Bina, because it says she shall spit before him. So the spit has to remain there before him, not get blown away by the wind. Hilkach, therefore, hu arach v'higutza, if he's tall and she's short, klotasu haruach ika b'fanav. Then if the so if he's taller than her, then as soon as the spit leaves her mouth, it is in front of the oven, right? It's in front of the guy. So even if it then gets carried away by the wind, it's okay. But but if he's tall and she's short, so if she is taller than him, and so she spits, right? And before the spit comes down to eye level of the oven, or even head level, it gets blown away. Then it never was before him. So we're being a little super literal here, as the Gemara often is. So that's the case in which the wind blowing it away invalidates it. Be'inan adamatil hadayape. He at least has to get to the point where it's in front of him, in front of his face, if you will, and then it can be blown away. It's fine. Amar Rava also said, Achla tuma varaksa. What if she ate some garlic and then spat? Achla gargishta varaksa, or she chewed some clay and then spat. Then that is not effective. Because this is not considered generating spit. This is like spit that was generated by something that you ate. Okay, so you're not actively creating the saliva or secreting the saliva. It's being done passively. Okay, again, super literal. My Tama V'Yarko Atzmavin, and has to be her own. She has to generate the spit. It doesn't apply here. Rav also said, the judges have to see the spit. Because it says before the eyes of the elders. Okay. And it's called, the place is called the Chalitza house. That's only, as we said in the Mishnah. This is quoting from the Mishnah, that the judges are required to say, this is the Chalitza house, but not everybody else in attendance. And then we had this different opinion in the Mishnah as well. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, everybody does. Tanya, the Brisa says, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. One time we were before Tarfon Ubasach, Yevamot Lachlos, and Yevamot came to do Chalitza. And he said to us, Anu Kulchem, everybody say with me, say after me, Chalitz Hanal, Chalitz Hanal, Chalitz Hanal. It's called, the Chalitzas, Chalitzas, Chalitzas. So emphasizing that everybody in attendance has to finish this part. Okay, and that is the end of the 12th parak and the end of today's daf. And tomorrow we will pick up with the 13th parak.
Thank you, Dov. Have a good day.
You too.